Tonight we are going to study Parshas Terumah, and we have a very interesting comment of haTurim, as always. And on this occasion, I'd like to add a thought of my own as well. The significance of that will be apparent very soon. So let's start at the beginning. I'll just get my ArtScroll Chumash. For those who would like to follow in the Stone Chumash, ArtScroll page 444. So we are beginning Parshas Terumah. As you know, Parshas Terumah deals with the construction of the Mishkan, and more precisely, the materials needed to build the Mishkan, the proportions, and the building features, the architectural features, and other features of the Mishkan. Next week's Parasha Tetzaveh continues that theme. Although I should mention that next week we're going to do something for Purim. Next week we're going to do Moshe and Haman in the thought of the haTurim. So we will actually let's say, take a detour from our Parsha studies in order to talk about something Purim related. But in any case, just to mention the context, so the Parsha begins, Daber b'nei saveichuli terumah. They shall give for me a portion, or they shall take for me a portion. The word terumah here is rendered as portion. Now, terumah really means something which is elevated from the word ram. Laharim is to lift up something. Ram is uplifted. Lihit romeim. Ram Kol is a public address system, or an amplifier, something which raises the sound. So that's the word terumah. So it's used as a donation or a contribution, or as we said here, a portion, but it has the connotation of something which is separated and uplifted and elevated. The haTurim, though, Kedarko, sees another very interesting remez here. The word terumah is in the second pasuk, Vaychuli Terumah. Terumah is spelled Taf Resh Vav Mem He. Says about haTurim, you can also look at the letters closely and you can see it as Mem Torah. Terumah has the word Torah within it, plus the additional letter Mem. So he says this alludes to the Torah that was given in 40 days. And he adds as well, for good measure, that the immediate preceding Parsha, that is to say the last verses in last week's Torah reading in Mishpatim, say, Ve'avo Moshe b'soch ha'anan vayal el hahar. Moshe entered the cloud and he ascended the mountain. Vayi Moshe bahar arba'im yom va'arba'im laila. And Moshe was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Of course, this refers to Moshe's famous commune in the heavenly realm in which he received the Torah during those 40 days and 40 nights. So the immediate subsequent Parsha, whether these passages are recorded in the Torah according to the chronology, is a very important machlokes. Rashi's view is that they are not, that actually Parshas Terumah belongs a bit later in the portion. The important, very consequential narrative of the Chet HaEgel actually occurred before Parshas Terumah. But whether we follow Rashi or Ramban, either way, clearly when we open up the Torah scroll, the Sefer Torah, we read our Parsha Terumah that follows immediately from Moshe's ascent to the mountain where he was for 40 days and 40 nights. So says the Baal haTurim. There's actually someone called Baal haTrumos as well, Sefer haTrumos, but that's a different person. That's a halacha Sefer. The Torah is also halacha sefer, but Baal haTurim is the Perush on the Torah that we're studying now. So the Baal haTurim says the word Terumah alludes to Torah Arba'im. What's the significance of that? What's the connection between Torah and Terumah? So the Baal haTurim says something very interesting. He says, Lo nitzna Torah ella la'ochle truma. He says that the Torah can only be fully appreciated. The Torah, of course, is the patrimony of all Israel. But those who appreciate the Torah the most, or we could say those who gain the most proficiency or the mastery of the Torah, are those who eat Terumah. What's he talking about? Who eats Terumah? Terumah is limited to the Kohanim. The Kohanim represent the spiritual and religious, perhaps intellectual elite of the Jewish people. The Kohanim do not have a portion of land. The Kohanim do not have any kind of agricultural allocation or homestead. Moreover, the Kohanim, although they're not forbidden to pursue a livelihood, but for the most part, they don't have the, let's say, training or the capacity to pursue a livelihood through any conventional means. Rather, the Kohanim are supposed to be the spiritual leaders of the nation. How do they maintain themselves? They are supported through Terumah. Terumah is the portion that Klal Yisrael give to the Kohanim. Classically, it's 1 part in 50. 2% is the portion allocated to the Kohanim, and that is the Terumah. So says the Baal HaTurim, those who best appreciate the Torah, those who are in the best position to understand the Torah and indeed to teach the Torah, are those who eat Terumah. That's the remez. Veichuli Terumah refers to the Terumah, and there's a kind of analogy to Ochlei Haman, because Chazal say, Lo nitna Torah ela la'ochlei Haman. The Torah was given to those who eat manna from heaven. The simple understanding, although there are a number of possibilities, but the simple understanding is that because the Jewish people, during their sojourn, extended sojourn in the wilderness, were not required, were not compelled, as most people are, to earn a livelihood. They did not have to work the field or pursue some other trade in order to provide for themselves and their families. They had the man that fell every day. So therefore, they were at leisure to study the Torah. They were not distracted. They did not have the burden of earning a livelihood, and they were able to study Torah. So that's what the Chazal mean, according to the simplest explanation, that the Torah was given to those who eat the man. So in a similar way, those who eat the Terumah have a similar benefit in that their needs, their financial necessities are met through the Terumah, and therefore they're able to study Torah. Of course, I'm sure you realize that there is clearly a weakness, if I can say that, in this drash. And the weakness is that the Torah here is not talking about the Terumah which the Kohanim eat at all. The Torah, as we mentioned in our little intro, the Torah here is talking about the Terumah. The Torah uses the word Terumah to refer to the donation that is contributed by Klal Yisrael for the building of the Mishkan. Those who have gold, or those who have silver, or those who have copper, or those bronze, or those who have wood, or those who have silk, or those who have the other materials, or those who have the skills to be needed in order to fashion the features of the Mishkan. They step forward and they donated those who have the dyes. The dyes were very expensive as well, very hard to come by, very costly. So those who have in their possession, or those who will barter for them and donate them, they are encouraged to do so. We're not talking about the Terumah that the Torah describes later on, the portion given to the Kohanim. So therefore, I would like to suggest an alternative. Again, it doesn't detract from the suggestion of the Baal HaTurim, but I would like to contribute my own conjecture here, and that is that maybe the meaning is Lo nitna Torah ela lenosnei Terumah. That in order for a person to be worthy, in order for a person to, let's say, live up to his responsibilities of someone who is part of the cloud, someone who is devoted to the agenda of the Ribono Shel Olam, someone who has the capacity and maybe the merit and the gift of being able to understand the Torah and to master the Torah, to become a conduit for Torah, he has to be among those who participate in the betterment of the tzibur, those who give Terumah. Terumah, of course, is a voluntary donation. Those who choose to give, they give. So in order for a person to be zochet to Torah, he needs to be among those who give the Terumah. I just need to mention, I have a bit of a problem with my computer, and I'm conscious of the possibility it may conk out, in which case I'm going to have to switch to my phone, which I can do, but I would just ask everyone to bear with me if that happens. The problem is one of battery life. For certain reasons, I'm not in the position to extend the battery life. So if it conks out, hang tight. I'm going to switch to my phone. Yeah. So we said, my suggestion is that there's a remez here. The Torah is given to those who give truma, those who participate in tzorchei tzibur, those who contribute and feel their sense of responsibility to the rest of the community, whether in the religious needs generally or the needs of poverty or hachzakas haTorah, promoting Torah itself. And many of the great gedolim excelled in the midst of tzedakah. Of course, probably most of them did not have exceptionally, generous means to give, but there were many who were notable in their devotion to the mitzvah of tzedakah. Chaim Tzanzer, the great Divrei Chaim, was exceptional for that. He was known that people would give him money to distribute to the poor, and he was very, very devoted. They said that every Friday, he had not a farthing left in his home because he gave it all away to those who are in need. Also, Rav Chaim Brisker, you may know Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, and the other side of the Hasidic Misnagdic divide, also was distinguished for his devotion to the mitzvah of tzedakah. The Nedava that we're speaking about here specifically is the support or the means of constructing the Mishkan, and the analogy to that would be a building drive for a community, for a shul. I have two colleagues in America that I can think of. I didn't want to mention them by name, and their shuls had building drives, and it was interesting to me when I looked at the list of donors. In each of these two shuls, the rabbis were prominent among the list of donors, and I'm quite sure it wasn't just because, out of respect for the position of the rabbi. I'm sure that they contributed of their own funds to the campaign. So I would like to suggest lonit natorela lenosne truma. Perhaps the remez of Terumah and Torah has to do with that sense of responsibility for the tzibur and the contribution to the campaign. So this, what I would like to say. I'm sorry again for the drama earlier. Let's continue in the time we have left. I want to share with you a thought about the Aron as well. So if you're within the Stone Chumash, if you turn the page to 446, so in Pasuk Yud Va'asu Aron Atzei Shitim. They shall make the ark of acacia wood, amasayim v'chetzi arko, ama v'chetzi rachva, v'ama v'chetzi komaso. The measures are 2.5 in length, 1.5 in width, and 1.5 in height. So the haTurim observes that the word Aron has the same letters as has the same letters as Oran. Oran is from the word Or. Oran means their light, or like Oran Shel Yisrael. That although the menorah, of course, was in the sense of the functionality, it shed light, but in a way it was the Aron which housed the tablets of Aseres HaDibros and the Sefer Torah, which symbolizes metaphorically the light of Israel. Like we say Torah Or. It's actually the association is mentioned in the Gemara in Megillah, a very well-known pasuk, La'ihudim haisa ora v'simcha v'sason v'yikar. So the Gemara interprets that La'ihudim haisa ora zu Torah. The Gemara in Megillah says that when it says in the book of Esther that the Jewish people had ora, they had light, so it's a remez to Torah. And this is hinted to also in the Atbash, because in the Atbash formula where Aleph is exchanged for Taf and Bet exchanged for Shin, so the Aleph of the word Ora is exchanged for the Taf of Torah. So we see a connection between Torah and Or. Torah and Ora, or like we said in the word Aron, Oran Shel Yisrael, says the Baal HaTurim. There's another anagram of that short word, Aron, Aleph Resh Vav Nun, also spells out the word Norah. Norah means awesome, but it has the connotation of like sometimes uh, intimidating or fearsome, but not fear in the sense of terror, but fear in the sense of overwhelmed with awe. And the Aron, of course, has that property as well. It says that the Rashi mentions in Bereshit that the Levium were the the numbers of the Levium were diminished because they were responsible for the Aron and for the other features of the Mishkan, of which the Aron was the holiest and therefore the most dangerous. We find a number of examples where just looking for it here, I'm sorry. A number of examples in the Torah, or rather in the Tanakh, where the Aron was captured by the Philistines and a plague broke out as a result, for which reason they sent it back to the Jewish people. We find that Uzzah, who put his hand on the Aron when it seemed to be slipping off of the carriage that was transporting it, and he perished as a result. We find repeatedly that those who are insufficiently cautious or respectful of the Aron, or maybe they're unworthy, even if they're great people, but they're not great enough, so to speak. Or even as in the case of Nadav and Avihu, who approached the Aron where they were not authorized to do so, and they perished as a consequence. So it says the Baal HaTurim, the word Aron also has the letters Norah, which I think is certainly a reflection of the reverence that a person should have for the Torah and for the Aron. Obviously, means the original Aron, which was, so to speak, the repository of the presence of Hashem. But there's another aspect to this as well, which the Baal HaTurim also tells us, and that is the gematria. So we said that the word Aron has the letters of Oran, like Oran Shel Yisrael, the light of Israel. It has the letters of Norah, which we just explained, but it also has a gematria, an interesting gematria. It has the gematria of Nezer. Nezer is 257, 257, and that's the same gematria as Aron. And Nezer means a crown. It's like Keser. A Nezer is a crown. Says the Baal HaTurim that if we look closely, we find that the Torah mentions the word Zer. Zer, Zayin, Resh, is also a crown. It's like a decorative border. Zer Zahav Saviv, a golden, like raised border, like a kind of crown that is associated with the Mizbeach, with the golden altar. It's associated also with the Shulchan, with the table, and it's associated here with the Aron as well. But in the case of the Shulchan and the Mizbeach, there the Torah says, Va'asisa lo zer zahav saviv. You shall make for it. In the case of the Aron, so there it says, Va'asisa alav. That's in the next pasuk in Yud Aleph. Take a look. V'tzipiso zo zahav. Overlay it with gold, tahor, pure gold. Mibayis michutz titzapeno, inside and outside. Vasisa alav zer zahav saviv, and you shall place upon it, or you shall make for it to go upon it, zer zahav saviv, which the art school people render a gold crown all around. Now, the nuance of difference is that in the case of the other two, it says vasisa lo, and here it says vasisa alav upon it. So the Baal HaTurim says this alludes to the fact that there are three crowns. There's the crown of Torah. There's also the crown of Kahuna, and that's associated with the Mizbeach because the incense altar represents the highest, most ethereal, and most sublime form of avoda, of divine service that was accomplished by the Kohanim. That's the Mizbeach, that's the Mizbeach HaZahav, not for sacrifices, but for burning incense. So that symbolizes the Keser, the crown of the Kahuna of the priest. Then there's Keser Malchus, that is the crown of political authority of the king. So the king is associated with the table because the table represents the provision, the material, or if you like, the financial wherewithal and well-being of a person or a household or the community or the country. So that is associated with the king. So there's Keser Malchus, there's Keser Kahuna, and there's Keser Torah. Says about haTurim, the fact that the word Aron is gematria nezer, which means crown, alludes to the fact that the crown of Torah is greater than the other two crowns. For a few reasons, I'll just mention one. One reason is because it's accessible to anyone. Because to be worthy of the crown of Kahuna, I don't know exactly worthiness. If you're born into a family of Kohanim, then that crown is yours. Malchus is a lot more limited. One has to be a descendant of King David to be deserving of that, or to acquire that, or to become associated with that crown. The crown of Torah is accessible to anyone who seeks it out, anyone who seeks to be worthy and deserving and to earn the crown of Torah can do so. And the crown of Torah, therefore, because it's a meritocracy, it's, so to speak, acquired through one's own efforts and one's own merit, as opposed to a matter just of patrician birth. So therefore, it's Ola al Gabehem. Actually, the Mishnah says that Keser Shem Tov is Ola al Gabehem, but here we're talking, the Baal HaTurim is limiting himself to the three features of the Mishkan, which are associated with the Zer. And he says that the Aron is Gematria Nezer, and it says Vasitza Alav. So we've seen that the Torah is associated with light, with luminescence. We see the Torah is associated with the divine revelation, and therefore has to be treated with utmost reverence and maybe some awe and maybe even some realization of the consequences of mistreating the Torah. We see now that the Torah is the greatest crown, and one who is deserving of it, one who acquires it, is greater than the Kohen, greater than the king. But now Baal HaTurim says there's one other aspect as well, and that is in the dimensions. When we read again the dimensions, and that's why I read them in one by one, even though it sounds just like technical info, Amasayim v'chetzi arko, etc. The Baal HaTurim observes that in all of the features of the Mishkan, we find measures which are complete. Here they're all halves. The height, the width, and the depth are all half, 2.5, 1.5, 1.5. Says about haTurim, Kol midoso hayu shvuros b'chatzei amos. All of the measures, all of the dimensions of the ark, symbolizing the Torah, symbolizing the one who studies the Torah, perhaps symbolizing the one who is proficient in the Torah, who is a master of Torah, but all of those dimensions are broken. They are all incomplete. Because in order for a person to achieve eminence in Torah, he has to be conscious of his inadequacy as well. The broken measures says he has to limit himself, break himself, and humble himself. A person who is focusing only on the Keser Torah, the crown of Torah, that he will be deserving of, or that he will earn or acquire through his Torah proficiency, if a person has that in his mind alone, then he will never achieve that greatness in Torah. In order to study Torah, a person has to have the humility as well. And that's why the Baal HaTurim says this is the remez of the broken letters. And a person who imagines that his understanding of Torah is complete will certainly never gain eminence in Torah. It's rather only when he realizes that however much he knows, he's only partially fulfilled his responsibility in Torah knowledge. Just end with a joke I've heard a few times, but I heard it for the first time when we moved to England. I think it's an Anglo-Jewish joke. It's probably not limited to Anglo-Jewry, but it captures the mindset of the old Anglo-Jewish lay leadership. Congregation hired a new rabbi, and a few weeks later, one of the members of the management committee was driving past the rabbi's house quite late at night, and he saw a light on in the rabbi's study. And in those days, the congregation used to pay for the electricity of the rabbi. I think those days are gone, but it used to be the case. And it was expensive. So he was unhappy that the rabbi had left the light on late at night. So the next board meeting, he reported to his colleagues. He said that I drove by the house and the rabbi was profligate with our money. He left the light on in his study late at night. So one of the other Balabatim said to him, well, maybe the rabbi was up late studying. Maybe he was learning. So the first man banged his fist on the table and he said, it was my understanding that we have engaged a rabbi who has completed his studies. So the idea that a rabbi's studies are complete and therefore he has no need to study Torah further, of course, is that's why it's a joke, is completely farcical. But there is a certain mindset that the study of Torah is in order to achieve a particular designation or certification or diploma. And once that has been accomplished, then okay, he's done. Of course, this is very far from the vision that the Torah has, that all of the measures of the Aron are only partial, because one who aspires to Torah achievement must also recognize his very um, um, his uh, continuous limitations. He must also realize how far he is from completeness in his knowledge of the Torah. So those are some thoughts for Parasha. I apologize for the confusion along the way. I appreciate those who helped get my tech problems resolved. And thank you to everyone. Next week, we're doing a Purim special, same time, and we look forward to seeing you there. Have a wonderful Shabbos.